Hello, hello, sweet honeybees. Welcome to the Electric Honey Pot, where energy is the nectar of life. My name is Autumn, and this whole project is about the human experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of the magic that happens in between. Yesterday, I was feeling extremely low. I had posted a video talking about how worthless I feel because society determines my value and worth as a human being based on my productivity. And let's face it, I have not been very productive since my mom was murdered. In fact, there have been many days where it is difficult for me to even get out of bed. I've struggled to function. Yesterday was also hard because my grandmother, my last living grandparent, my grandmother, is going through dementia, and it was her birthday yesterday. I don't really have contact with her because I just don't want to be around the energy of that side of the family. Today is my other grandmother's birthday, and today is also kind of a trigger day because my grandmother's birthday was used as part of my uncle's lie to steal my mom's inheritance. So it's just been a lot of really heavy negative emotions, and yesterday I was just kind of sitting in it, honoring my frustrations and how I feel, because it is important to acknowledge those heavier emotions and feel them out. My feelings and frustrations are 100% valid. But I woke up this morning still feeling pretty low, laid in bed half the day, ended up taking a nap. And while I was in this nap, I had a dream about several men surveying a foundation to a structure. And this foundation belonged to me. One of the men pulled me aside and asked me if I wanted to save the rest of the day by trusting him and coming with him. And I told him that I did. And then he told me his name before I woke up. And when I woke up, I remembered a message that I received from someone that I met recently. He had sent me this message this morning. His name is the same name as the man in my dream. And the message was about every day being a new opportunity and doors opening, new possibilities. So while I'm still sad, and today's a trigger day, I decided that I am going to come to one of my favorite local places, and I'm going to talk about something that means a lot to me and makes me happy. This place in particular that I'm sitting at right now, it's a creek off of the Duck River, and the Duck River has a lot of special meaning to me as I saw pieces of my past lives while swimming in this river last year. But I want to save that for another time. I want to talk about where my self-discovery and my healing journey began. Music festivals saved my life, and they continue to save my life. They are one of the most important things to me. And I know that there is a lot of negative stigma associated with music festivals due to drug use that happens at them, but it is so much more than that. My own personal story involves drug use. I won't lie, but psychedelics have helped me reach a point. Oh my gosh, there's a snake. That is so cool. Sorry guys, he's swimming too fast for me to get a video of him. But anyway, psychedelics have actually helped me reach a point in my life where I can spend my day-to-day life sober. I pretty much gave up alcohol last year. I gave up a lot of things last year. I gave up smoking weed. I stopped using cocaine every single day. You know, I have done a lot of healing, and it's all thanks to music festivals. My deeper healing journey really began in March of 2022. I had reached a point where I wanted to heal in July of 2021. On July 31st, I had asked my mom to take me to a hospital voluntarily so I could get mental health help. I ended up getting assaulted by the police, even though I was voluntary. I got assaulted for crying for my mama and begging to be transported in an ambulance or by my mom instead of by the police. It left me extremely traumatized, adding to my complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I spent the next 4 months of my life barely being able to walk because they nearly paralyzed me. So here I was wanting to better myself and better my life, and my life was just getting more problematic. I lost my home. I could barely walk. I had to move in with my elderly grandparents who were getting around better than I was. My grandfather was giving me his pain medications on the days that he felt good because I was extremely under-medicated for the amount of pain that I was in. My L5 was compressing my sciatic nerve and my spinal cord, and I felt like I was burning alive from the waist down. When I had my surgery, it kind of felt like a rebirth, but I was still struggling with my mental health. In January, the very beginning of January, I ended up attempting to end my life. I have no idea how I survived. I had taken a cocktail of blood pressure medications, muscle relaxers, and opiates, and by that point, I had no tolerance to any of it. And I don't know how I survived. I spent several days in and out of consciousness. And I remember at one point, one of my neighbors came over and was banging on the door because she hadn't seen me in a few days. I went to answer the door and I was falling all over the place. I could barely walk. I leaned against the door and pushed it open. I fell out onto my snow-covered porch, and my neighbor's just freaking out about how I'm blue and she can't understand a word that I'm trying to say. She's asking me what I've done and saying she's going to call an ambulance. I was just pleading with her in my mumbles not to call an ambulance because I didn't want to go back to a hospital after the traumatic experience I had had with the police when I tried to seek help voluntarily. So I spent several days just vomiting everywhere, in and out of consciousness. Everything's just kind of a blur. And when I finally came to, I felt angry that I survived. It was just like, why me, you know? But then I ended up meeting this man in February, and everything just changed. I got into a relationship with this man in the electronic music scene, and it was a horrible relationship. He was horrible to me, didn't value me, but that relationship opened up so many doors for me, and I credit that relationship for really kickstarting my healing journey, because I ended up at my very first camping festival with this man in March of 2022. And that's where the deeper healing began. I had been to music festivals before and knew I loved them, but I had never camped at a festival before. And I went to this festival called Goddess Awakening. I had an extremely profound experience on psychedelics while I was there. And then I was shown what community and humanity truly is after a lifetime of being hurt by other people. I was taken care of by complete strangers at this music festival. I was extremely underprepared to camp in below freezing weather, and they made sure I was taken care of and warm the night that my partner abandoned me in a tent in 29-degree weather because he was breaking up with me. I didn't have food, and they fed me. You know, these people literally took care of me. The last day of the festival, after he had broken up with me, they even held me in a cuddle puddle while we cried and listened to singing bowls. One of them the one that drove me up there with my partner also drove me home with me crying and sleeping the whole drive home beside him. And, you know, he didn't hold any of it against me. He showed me so much kindness. And I just knew that music festivals were what I wanted to be doing with the rest of my life, that it was my happy place. I had started coming out of my shell and dressing how I want to dress and being the person that I want to be. I started removing these masks that society had expected me to put on in order to assimilate. I even started going to music festivals by myself because I just loved them so much. I didn't want to miss out on them just because I didn't have people around. And it was difficult at first, but last year I got to a point where I was literally riding around the country with complete strangers because I didn't have a car so I could get to music festivals. And even when I had a group of people around, I would be like, I'm going to do my own thing and venture off onto my own. You know, I have just built so much confidence and self-love within myself through the music festival scene, and it's just been wonderful and absolutely healing. As I recovered from that relationship and I started healing through having conversations with people at music festivals about my trauma and them sharing their own traumas with me and realizing that I'm not alone. It's not a problem with me. It's just a problem with the way our world is. I stopped harboring all of this guilt and shame for the things that happened to me through relating to other people. And then in August of 2022, I found out that my mom was missing while I was at a music event. I was actually coming up on some very strong LSD when I got the phone call that my mom was missing. I already knew she was gone. She had visited me in my dreams a couple of days prior, and I had a weird feeling about the dream when I woke up, but I didn't really understand what it was about. But when I got that phone call, I just knew. I spent the next couple of hours tripping on this strong acid in a hammock with all of the worst case scenarios playing out in my head and trying to convince myself that there was a chance she was still alive, when in my heart I knew she was already gone. I eventually reached a point where something inside of me told me to get up and dance for her spirit. And so I got up and I literally danced the rest of the night in a complete trance, staring up at the stars, feeling the bass throughout my body and in my blood. And that experience was my spirituality and spiritual connection activating within me. And it happened because of psychedelics, bass music, and this absolutely tragic experience that I was going through with losing my mom. A couple of weeks later, after I went no contact with my family because of my aunt and my uncle's abuse, I went to another music festival where I ended up in this thing called Tribe. My friend Steph Blick runs this therapeutic tent that she calls Tribe. It's kind of like group therapy, but with sweat lodge techniques mixed in. Back in April of that same year, I had talked about some of my sexual trauma to some complete strangers. It was the first time that I had really vocalized it and acknowledged that it happened in a healing space. And it completely changed my life. So I knew that I needed to go to the tribe tent and talk about what happened to my mom. I got there late, but they let me into the circle anyway. They let me interrupt. They let me tell my story, even though they were in the middle of having a conversation already. They held space for me to talk because they could sense that I really needed it. And I told them about what happened to my mom. I told them about my mom's body being found. I told them about what was going on with my family and how I had gone no contact. But then I talked about who my mom was as a person, all the positive things about her that I miss. When I talked about how she loved music and she had taught herself how to play bass guitar and she loved to sing, Steph asked me, "What was your mom's favorite song?" And I laughed as I told the group because I had always hated the song Wagon Wheel, but my mom loved it. And they began singing the song for me, the whole tent. And in that moment, my mom was alive again at this music festival. I could feel her spirit swirling around the tent with us. Her energy was present. And it was so profound. In that moment, I knew that there was something more to our existence. I had already come to that conclusion through my psychedelic experience at Goddess Awakening, but in that moment, it was the full-on confirmation that we continue to exist even once we're gone. We are not these physical flesh vessels that we currently inhabit. We are our consciousness, our spirit, our energy. And then over the next couple of years, I started to spiral. The first Mother's Day without my mom. I quit my job. I got really bad on cocaine because I was trying to escape how I felt. But I started focusing on music festivals and attending music events, and it was keeping me pushing. I was in a state of shock and repressing my feelings, but I was also continuing to live my life because my mom was no longer around to live her life. And I started recognizing patterns. A dragonfly just flew by as I say that. I started to realize that the universe and my mom were trying to communicate with me. I didn't fully understand it or accept it just yet. Over the last year, I've had memories show up on my Facebook page where I'm literally talking about how I feel like the universe is trying to communicate with me. It totally was. It just didn't fully click for me until last year. But I started noticing synchronicities. I started having these close encounters with animals, and I started noticing omens appearing that I ignored and ended up kind of fucking my life up even more ignoring. But music festivals kept me going. They gave me a sense of purpose. They gave me a safe space where I actually felt like I belonged and I was free to be myself. And then last year I had a complete awakening at a music festival, and I want to tell that story in another video because I want to talk about some of my experiences that I've had. But last year I woke up completely to the fact that I am the universe experiencing itself. It's all thanks to music festivals. And I know that festivals have also been a healing space for a lot of people because last year I started taking pictures of people at Halloween and asking them how music festivals have changed their lives. And it's actually really common. And I've discovered that, that reason why we feel so connected to music is because it taps us into those higher planes of consciousness, those higher dimensions where we recognize that we are all one. Cultures around the world, belief systems around the world have used song and dance as ways to communicate with spirit and God for millennia. And it's because music is the mind of God. It is tapping into that collective energy, and music festivals are so healing, and movement is so healing because it allows that stagnant energy to come out of our bodies, and it allows us to connect deeper to our spirits. You go to a concert or a festival and there's just people from all different walks of life, and they come together for the love of this music that touches them in special places in their soul and makes them feel like they're less alone. And that's because music is the great connector of all things. There's a reason why, shamans use things such as drums to enter their trance states, because that drumming is like the heartbeat. It's the original instrument other than our voices. And bass music in general, I've noticed it is allowing a lot of different people to wake up. At Soulfest last year, I found a sticker on the ground that says Jesus raves for our sins. And it's so true, because the resurrection is not about a man coming back from the dead. It is about the collective consciousness waking up. It is about Christ consciousness returning to the world, and Christ consciousness exists within all of us. And music festivals takes us back to our tribal roots. It's reconnecting us to our spirit, and it is allowing the activation of our pineal glands and the activation of our spirits. I don't know. Music festivals are just absolutely magic. I've even had some of my thoughts come into reality within a matter of minutes at music festivals, sometimes even instantly. Like Halloween last year, I manifested a breakfast burrito for free in like a minute. And I've had people witness this happen before too. It's just exciting. I can't wait until all of our powers come back online. Reality is not what we've been told it is. We are extremely powerful spiritual beings, and if you don't believe in magic, I highly recommend you go to a music festival, because you will realize that magic is very real. Fish jumps out of the water as I say that. I am going to start talking more about some of the experiences that I've had attending music festivals that showed me the power that exists within me. I also want to share some of the experiences that I have had working with plant medicines and the profound realizations that I have had through my work with them. I also look forward to sharing the healing and awakening journey of others through music festivals. Hi, little bee. The electric honey pot. It's more than just me. The electric honey pot is all of us, because we are all one, and we're all made up of energy. And each of our individual stories matters. And it's important to speak your truth, because no matter what anyone says, your story matters, and you sharing it could be what helps another person. We all play a part. We are all individual pieces of the puzzle to this grand picture that is life. And the human experience, while it can be very challenging, it is also such a blessing. The Grateful Dead. We are dead from the moment we're born, but it is important to remember to have gratitude for this experience, because being an all-knowing being gets boring sometimes, and we come here to have a human experience where we are so blessed to feel love and pain. You can't have one without the other, and things such as grief is just proof that you have the capacity to feel love so deeply, and that is something beautiful. Well, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to me, if you're still listening. I feel a lot better after being out here just talking about this a little bit. I love you so much. Have a great day. Stay curious. Bye.